Hey, what's up, party people? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Amar with ZenMaid. What are we talking about today, Jeremy?
Emails. I'm
Emails.
getting like
You
flooded
sound
by
you sound
emails.
so excited. You sound so excited. Yes. Okay, cool. All right, everyone. Today we're going to chat. We weren't sure what we were going to chat about on the podcast today. And then, as what always happens when we jump on, we started chatting.
I was
We started
bitching.
chatting about emails. Yeah, and Jeremy's frustration with emails right now. And last week we were like, we should have started recording earlier. So today we just decided to hit the record button and to pretty much continue that conversation. So from what we were talking about earlier, I think we're probably just going to talk a little bit about everything that Jeremy hates in the world about email. And and then we're just going to talk about kind of how he's managing that, how I manage my
Yeah.
email, and what we intend to do in the future other than give up. Yeah.
It all started with basically me asking Amma if he was busy or effective the day before, because yesterday I took a day off. It's funny, actually, I say a day off, but I actually did a strategy session with another good CEO of mine, and we did talk about businesses and what we can do and so on. But I do consider it as day off because it's day off operation for me. So it's a day off. And anyhow, when I came back home, like I spent like a whole full day like discussing with him about business and everything. And when I came back home, I like 50 emails to triage, and I'm like, fuck, this is just like busy work. This is not actually being effective, helping the company in any way. And it's just like really annoying. And so I was telling Emma, like, here's some of my cunning plans on how to cut noise and crap. And I think this is kind of like drastic methods at this stage, but it's still something we need to talk. But before we go there, and what I plan on doing, maybe we could talk each other about like what are some of the strategy you put in place in order to deal with emails? Do you actually get flooded by emails or not at all? Those sort of thing. And maybe let's talk about the categories of emails we're receiving as well, and how much like type of volume that sort of takes.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are really great questions. It's a good way to kind of frame the conversation. So, yeah, I mean, so for me, I have a couple of filters set up on Gmail that kind of move some emails like around or whatever. I think that I'm pretty good about staying off of like newsletters and just kind of like junk stuff that I don't actually read. And so my email inbox functions as my to-do list at most times, which I know is like what people say is like the exact opposite of
Should
what you
not
should do,
do.
but I've actually found that it's like the most like effective for me. But I can tell
Yeah.
you exactly why. It's because I realized a couple of years kind of into my career that really no matter what I did, I would always go back to my inbox because I'm very ADD. And people go, oh, just shut your
Sure.
inbox for 3 hours. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that, right? Like maybe I can do that for a day. I can't do that every single day. It's just not the way that my brain works. At some point, I open it up and then I don't close it. And so at some point, I just decided to embrace that instead of trying to fight it all the time. And I made my email inbox my to-do list. So now where I come back to as kind of my central hub when I kind of don't know what I'm working on always brings me back to here's what you should do next. Right. So I think that because that's my motivation, that keeps my inbox a lot cleaner. And we can talk more about how I do that or whatever. But yeah.
It's a great point. The first thing I do is unsubscribe from everything. I freaking hate it, like everything. And it's funny because we obviously trying on the other hand to try to have people on our list and people interested and send good content and so on. I just don't have the bandwidth for that type of regular type of content. So unsubscribe from every newsletter, whether it's a friend or not. I don't think I'm subscribed to any newsletter at all. So that's the first point.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so just like one thing there is I think that's one like big difference between us is you tend to take things to extremes in order
Yeah.
to solve
Yeah.
problems. For me, I have a couple newsletters that I'm on that I'm happy to skim and I like them and they give me good like content. And
Yeah.
sometimes I click the links, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they
No, you're
stay in
absolutely
my
right.
inbox for 3 weeks before like I read them. But like yeah, I think it's a little bit extreme to like generalize that you don't have time for like for any of this stuff, because like there's some newsletters out there that might be valuable that are
Oh,
like
sure.
once a month. So yeah,
So, but
just
here's the
wanted to
interesting
point out.
thing. No, and
Yeah,
it's a good conversation to have. Basically, um, I am very aware and very keen on consumption versus production, and so I always like tend to push to the extreme the production versus the consumption. So, every time I consume something, I'm very conscious that this is entertainment most of the time. So I don't have like a specific time for consuming things that are important for me. For me, those times are like, mastermind with other founders, and then basically leveraging my relationship with those founders to sort of like get the feedback or the information that are more targeted to my situation. So when we are on our
yeah,
mastermind group, I will say, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then I may have find potentially the answer in one, I don't know, Harvard Business School article or whatever. But I like and prefer the trial approach that you guys went through and say, hey, well, I solve it this way or this way or this way. Right.
hmm
So it's more of my way of consumption. And very often when it's too easy when we're consuming stuff to wander off and then start consuming more than actually is needed at that point. Like if I were like reading a book on culture when I started Quickmail, I was just like, well, it just wasn't the right time. So it's just entertainment because if I don't apply, I will lose that knowledge, and so therefore I will need to relearn that knowledge when the time comes. So I'm very strict
yeah.
on consumption in that sense, and
Well, so I yeah, but I think that yeah, so I talked about this a little bit on the Tropical MBA podcast, and I think it is like an important thing to note that I don't consider reading a newsletter to be like working time, right? Like it's
okay,
definitely
then we're good.
entertainment time, but
Yeah,
I do find that that time can be very valuable to the business, but it's important to me that I not mistake consuming
very
that
true.
for producing for the business. So I just separate those two things like in my head, and it's typically during my off hours that I'll read that stuff. But the one thing I think actually that's also of note here is a lot of the newsletters that I do remain a part of tend to be newsletters where it's someone very smart that I respect going, here's 6 links that I think you should consider reading with a blurb about each one. And the reason that I like those is because then I see the blurb and I make the decision of whether I want to
Yeah.
consume like that content. So I go through a lot of the same evaluation process that you do, but I want to receive the newsletter and then choose not to read the content versus not seeing that content at all, like to begin with. But I've been really far like on your
Understand.
extreme as well in the past.
Yeah, I understand. Curators are probably the best one, in terms
Hmm
of newsletters. Like, they do the hunting for you. The one thing I have
Yeah.
as a problem is that I'm a very big, strong believer in removing temptations in a sense. Like,
Makes sense.
if I don't know, if everyone around you is doing something constantly and that's the thing you're trying to avoid, then don't be around those people, right? And it's the same thing, like if the newsletter is coming, it's like it's like too great a risk of you to sort of like wandering. That's also why I got like newsfeed eradicator on Facebook and stuff like that. So I can just go to my group without having the temptation, oh, that looks like a cool article, and then wander off and then losing like
Gotcha.
but maybe that's a different podcast. So let's go back to email specifically. I think one of the big problem that I have personally. So I came back from my day off, and I had like 50 emails to go through, and I was like, holy hell,
Mhm.
can't they just leave me alone? And these like
So what are the
lots of different
emails?
types of emails, right? They're not newsletter emails. There are a lot of different emails that we can come through, but I guess that's not a problem that everyone has. Because if you're a developer, then you're going to have like just developer stuff. If you are, a marketing guy, then you're probably going to subscribe to a few marketing newsletters that will give you good ideas about XYZ or A/B testing and stuff like that. But as a founder,
Yeah.
we have like so many caps. Then we start receiving like emails from a lot of different directions that pulls you in different directions, whether it's a client, whether it's a problem to solve, whether it's like a technical things to review, whether it's what I mean is like that's kind of the problem I think as I experience as founder to be effectively the inbox is trying to steer me in a lot of different directions, right? Do you have that as well? or do you actually feel that as well, or for you it's like pretty narrow in terms of the subject of the emails and the topic of the emails?
Um, well, like I said, my email inbox is essentially my to-do list. So most of the stuff is pretty standard. And then I'll usually have a couple of chains that are a little bit like more involved that I kind of have to be paying attention to. But I wouldn't really say that my inbox like pulls me in different directions. In a lot of ways, it keeps me like on task. There are times though where, you know, when I was working on the free plan for ZenMaid, and it was just like a couple months of just deep thinking and like writing, for that I had to shut down my inbox at times because
Yeah.
that would pull me in like in different different directions. But I mean, I think that one important thing, because you know, I'd like to know what these emails actually are and a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah,
examples of
you
the
should.
emails that you're receiving, because to me that sounds like it might be the problem. The main reason that I don't feel like my email inbox is pulling me like away from things is because things that are in my email inbox usually require my attention, and if they don't require my attention, then either they're entertainment like a newsletter, right, of that I can go through this like on my own time, or they don't belong in my inbox, and then there's some other process in place that I need to kind of put in place to filter those out. So it might just be that my inbox is already very refined because I have been operating this way for like, you know, 6 years probably now.
Yeah, there may be also a big difference between you and me is that, I have that deep need. I don't think it's craving. Craving is not the right word, but it's more like a need to feel like I'm on top of everything. Like, if there is something that I can react immediately and then, um, address if there is a potential issue, whether it's a Heroku, because we're hosting on Heroku, whether it's a Heroku problem. So obviously I'm listening to Heroku problems, or it's, AWS issue, or those sort of thing. I think I like sort of shoot myself in the foot as well, because some of those emails are effectively notification of what's going on in terms of status.
Mhm.
Tools that I registered to, like GitHub as well, notifications super badly done, and GitHub notification is horrible. I get like flooded and I have to go through all of them. Maybe I don't know how to filter them properly, but that's one of the things that annoys me. And so they are mostly, not mostly, mostly, like
There's
okay,
some notification emails.
I go through them. So here's my system, and I'm happy with my
Yeah,
system. Basically, I receive
yeah,
in my email in my inbox, and then I have
yeah.
a multi-inbox setup in Gmail. So basically, I have you can imagine you have your normal inbox, but on the side of my
Yeah,
screen,
I have it as
I also
well.
saw.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I
you
know it.
have that as well. Okay, and then
Yeah.
basically I have I look at one email, and then I press a V to automatically move that email to one of the folders. So I have like three
Mhm.
folders or two folders that are interesting. Is that I have action, and so I can move to action folder, and then in this case that becomes your to-do list, like you mentioned. Or I get
Mhm.
read later, and it
Yeah.
becomes, and the rest of it is either archive or delete, right?
Okay.
That's basically my system. I go through it. This goes very fast. The problem is I never kind of like find the courage or like the willingness to go back and then act on all my action items. So now I got action items that are like, 5-6 months late. And then I go there and it's like,
Yeah.
that's not the point anymore. Let me remove that from the action.
So that right there is why I don't do it that way. So
Yeah.
my system works almost identical to yours, but I keep it all in the inbox because it forces me to clear things out. That if something has been sitting there for 6 months, then I
Yeah.
just archive the email and it's like it's no longer important. Or maybe like I'll snooze it, or I have like a revisit folder, but the
Yeah.
revisit is essentially like never ending to-do list. Like revisit this once every 2 years and see if one of these jumps out to you as like, holy crap, why haven't we done that yet? Right? It's
Yeah.
something like
So,
along those lines.
I wanted to ask you a question about
Yeah.
that. Do you, man, I missed the question. I will come back later. Oh yeah. Do you keep the inbox zero or not?
No, no, no,
Yes, you
no.
probably have like thousands and thousands of email in your inbox, and so that as soon as they're read,
No, my
it's easy to.
no, my inbox is
Okay,
70. My inbox has 70 emails in it.
okay, so
So in
that's
some
close
ways
to
I
inbox zero. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I follow the same inbox zero principles, but every time I see someone that's gotten their inbox down to zero, I'm like, you just wasted a bunch of time. Like there was no need to get it down like to that level.
Yeah,
That's like obsessive for the sake of being obsessive, right? Like
right, exactly.
I don't
But
know.
my
But I
question
do
then to
follow the
you
same
is,
principle.
I mean, I'll be feeling overwhelmed to have like 70 items to act on, right? So how do you actually see that?
Um so usually, I mean, a lot of things have like built up like over like time and whatever, so I know which things are urgent. Things that are urgent I'll move to like to the top of my inbox, either by snoozing them or something like along those lines. I do have like a written to-do list that I use like separately, but that written to-do list is usually just write down the number one or maybe the top two or three tasks like max for the day, of like these are like the three major things, and then I'll have like a time where I'll just run through my email inbox, and some of the emails are very very quick. Again, it's more of like a feel thing or something that I just like know from having like done it. Is most emails at a glance I know kind of how much time it's going to take to do whatever, what's kind of necessary, and whether like an action is like necessary or not. And then any emails that come in where I go, I don't really recognize that, I have no idea like what this is or what sort of work this may entail, then I'll go through and I'll like read that and essentially just kind of prioritize that wherever like it falls in.
For me, that will drain my energy to see like, I have still 70 items I didn't act on, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like it's all about how you kind of like perceive it. I don't think about this as 68 items that I like don't like have. I mean, so for example, some of like my unread emails in my inbox right now, because I just pulled it up and I'm
Yeah, I
looking
should pull
at
it
it,
too.
are like exec call notes from 2 weeks ago, right? Where like when I'm
Okay,
on the
so I
exec
will
call, the
class it
team takes
to,
a notes.
to review or to read, and so therefore it wouldn't be in my stuff anymore. Yeah.
Exactly right. But for me, I find that when I move things out of my inbox into other folders, they never ever get seen again. That might as well be a black
But
hole.
you do
So
see it,
my
like I do see it
strategy,
on my right because I got that multi inbox. I do see it on my right, right?
yeah, I had that as well, and I just found that it didn't work. It wasn't effective. The other thing is that with the multiple inboxes, at least the way that I had it set up, you couldn't archive. So in order to remove them from that separate inbox, you had to like remove the label. I don't know if this is the setup that I had,
Yeah, yeah, I
but it
see.
just turned into a headache. So I keep it all in the inbox, and that's essentially what holds me accountable, right? Like if my inbox goes over, now these days it's maybe over 90 or 100 in my inbox,
Then
that
it's okay,
usually
right? There's
means
time.
that
Okay.
I'm dropping the ball and everything.
Yeah, so that's a fair point. So, like today, I received Facebook emails notification. Like I need to verify or Facebook integration. It's basically another thing that pissed me off. Then I have notification that some domains are expiring as well, which is again organizational stuff for me to do. Then I have events notification. That's cool. I like having those. Means like we're getting a
Yeah.
sales demo calls. I have one guy
Well,
just
just hang on.
reaching out
What
to
was
me
that
personally.
notification?
Calendly.
What was the events notification?
Calendly is just a demo call, like a sales call, like following up
Okay, so that's just
or
something that you just
outreach.
like instantly archive, right? Because you want to
Yes,
know that
exactly.
information,
So
but there's
there's
no
a lot of
action
noise. Yeah,
necessary. Yeah.
exactly. Then I
Yeah. So
receive
I
like
have that as well.
invoicing also that I need to print because I'm doing the invoicing stuff, which is annoying, but I still do it.
Well,
Um,
so that might be one. I mean, if we went through this, I mean, all of these are really just business things, right? That you could like
yep.
implement in the business, right? That
Mhm.
you could easily have someone else do the
That's
invoicing.
true, but it's
That's
so
got to
annoying.
be.
Like most of the software, they don't allow you to have like someone else on your team to have those sort of emails without having access to being able to close the account or stuff like that. So that's not something I feel always comfortable giving to a VA or someone else on the team. Um, yeah, it's annoying, right?
I mean, you're always going to have people risk like that. I mean,
True.
any like I mean, like multiple team members on ZenMaid could completely wipe like a customer's like account, and we put in some safeguards
Well,
around
that
that,
happens
but we
too.
didn't
Okay.
always have those safeguards like in place, right? Like,
No, that
you
happens.
know,
But when it comes to credit cards, we discussed that. Like,
yeah.
there are still risk, and I prefer to avoid those risks. But of course, then that comes into extra work for me. Then I would say.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a
And
trade that you make. So
yeah, for the invoice, it's more like I do it for saving the company a little bit of money because it costs a lot to have someone else doing it in Switzerland, and that's not something remote because it needs to be printed. Yeah, annoying Swiss law anyway. So yeah, I got a lot of those little action items that I need to perform. I got
so what are
yeah.
what are some ongoing ones, right? Because you've named a couple that, like, domains expiring, you can't really
Happens every
plan, like
year.
you can plan for that, but well, yeah, but like that's not going to be the difference between you being annoyed at your inbox or not. Like, what's
That's right.
happening to you, like, let's say weekly, like let's focus on daily or weekly like emails that you're seeing that come in every day, and see
But
if
I
any
think
of
this is an
those might be
important
easy to
point.
eliminate.
I think this is an
Yeah.
important point. It's like I feel like a lot of those emails, and maybe I should put a system in place, especially for the invoice ones. I think it's
Yeah.
a lot of noise. And I think that's what I get annoyed about. Is like I get a lot of emails, but they're not always like relevant or important emails I need to act on. So it's
Well,
like a lot of noise.
but one thing is like,
Oh, now Amma is getting
I
annoyed
mean,
at me. I love it.
well, it's one of those things, because like you're a big fan of efficiency, and like you
Right.
tend to see
I
anything
am
that
annoyed.
comes to you where you're like, this isn't efficient for me personally, therefore the system's like broken, right? And that's kind of the tendency you have to see things with, right? For me, I don't see anything wrong with what you're saying, because unless you're getting notifications for things that you just don't want to get notifications for, I just want to get the notification and then just like archive like the email, right? So like, the whole thing is, every company that's sending you these emails or that's contacting you, they've got to strike a balance between contacting you when like, when it's actually vital, and then also kind of like getting like the job done, or making sure you're
Yeah,
aware of
sure.
like things that they're doing, right? So
No, sure. And I need to put
it's
some
just,
system in place for,
yeah,
for those things, because at the end of the day, if I'm not here to answer the emails and they're important, like for example, AWS emails, they require you to
mhm,
reply within 24 hours. And it's kind of annoying, those sort of things.
yeah.
I receive cold emails very often as well. So, every day I receive my share load of cold outreach, which I'm okay. I actually just move them straight away into cold outreach folder. Actually, those ones don't annoy me. You're right. This is probably like a lot of the automated notification that sort of like pollute
Yeah.
my inbox.
Yeah, and so you may just want to check on that, right? Just check
Yeah.
which notifications, and if you go into Heroku, you might be able to turn off half the notifications or whatever, right?
No, I don't
Yeah,
want,
that's a
but
really
it needs to be handled differently. So most of our communication happen on
yeah.
Slack, and I'm grateful for that. So I know that,
Mhm.
from the team, nothing will
Yeah.
come important on my emails. So I can ignore my emails for that time. Sometimes we do have some customers, and because like I mentioned, sometimes I shoot myself in the foot. Like a lot of for onboarding campaigns and stuff, like you just reply and then you send me an email straight away, and I'm grateful when I receive a reply. But it's just like
Mhm.
contributes to the load of my inbox, because sometimes instead of contacting support, they contact me. Which is okay because I redirect them, to support, or I just forward the email to support. But there's like extra time for their resolution as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so
Pros and
one of the
cons on
things
this
here that
one.
you could do. Hold on.
Yeah, it's pros and cons on this one. It's not like totally bad,
Yeah.
but it's not totally
Well,
great either.
one one reason that I'd actually wanted us to record this is because, again, we talk a lot about like kind of like the different extremes, right? And the different ways that you and I look at like at these different problems. And my initial feeling when we were first talking about this was that you wanted to essentially throw the baby out with the bathwater of like, I don't
So
like my
typical
email
of me,
inbox.
honestly.
It's overwhelming. Yeah, right. Like, but essentially what you said to me before was, I don't like my email inbox. It's overwhelming. So I'm going to create a new email inbox, set up an autoresponder on this one,
Because it
and
works
just
very well
essentially.
when I was on holiday. So I may actually come to this one because there is other stuff.
Okay, there might be other
Yeah.
stuff, but to me that immediately jumps out as a I don't like this, so I'm just going to turn it off and just like not deal with it,
No,
which
that
to me
wasn't
is
like
like
that.
not the solution.
Yeah. No.
So what I was going to say is like as an in between that might be a really good one is you could hire a VA to monitor your inbox. And so there's a
Yes,
really good
that's a possibility.
a really yeah, really good post by Manish Sethi. I think it's on hackthesystem.com. I think it's like if you look up, I'll send you a link to it, but I think
Yeah,
if you look
thanks.
up like Manish Sethi email marketing, or not email marketing, email inbox management, he talks about this entire system that he's put together. That's kind of what it's like. I follow like a modified version of it, but he essentially has a VA that comes into his inbox every single day and will go through and will categorize all of the emails for him and then also triage all of the emails to his team. So when he looks into his inbox, anyone that's contacted him for support has already it's either been responded to
Yeah,
by someone else, like answering the question, or they've been told to go to support and he never even sees the message, right? And so that's like one that I think that you might be able to do there, because it does sound like there are important emails coming in. It just sounds like there's a bunch of junk around it
that's
that
right.
you don't want to
Yeah,
unsubscribe from, but you don't want to be there, but
that's
like you
right.
want to see.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
this really weird
No, no,
thing,
you're
right?
absolutely correct. This is the. I mean, this is more like it probably was like in the moment type of frustration because most of the time it goes
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But like 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I was on holiday like for 1 week for a very
yeah.
long time, and I put this autoresponder. And the
Yeah.
thing that it did was it made me like super much more chill as to not having to look at my inbox in case there is a problem, because my autoresponder was basically, I'm not gonna read your email. If it's urgent, contact this email. And if not, then if you want to make sure I read it, like send it again to me, in 1 week time. And so that way, like
Mm,
remove completely my responsibility to follow up on those emails, because sometimes there are so important emails that comes in. But that way the other person knows that actually I don't live in my inbox this week and don't expect an answer. Because otherwise people got this idea like, oh, they ghosted me, those sort of like things like that.
well, so I would actually challenge you on that though, because that's one other reason that I don't stress about my inbox. I have no idea why, but people perceive me as a really, really busy guy. So like no
I
one
like the,
ever,
I
no
don't know
one, yeah,
why.
no one ever like is annoyed that I don't get back to them,
Right,
right?
right.
Like we've made it so abundantly clear of like who you contact, that if a customer contacts me, like I have emails from customers that are from like 2 weeks ago, right? Now, if they're having a problem, I'm going to make sure that they get help. But I have customers that have reached out to me with like questions about just things that don't relate to like our software. They relate to their business, and I'll get back to them like at some point. But like I don't feel any pressure to get back to them like over that, right? That like there is
Yeah, it's
zero, like
totally
no
me.
one.
It's totally me. Like, I love to come back straight away to my, to user that have problems and stuff like that, because I
Yeah,
value a lot.
it's in
Like,
your head.
yeah, it's in my head, like 100%. But
Yeah.
I think it's also what push, the quality of our product and our service and stuff like that. But you're right. This is outside of the sort of like zone, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, but the other thing is just remember that like that could have been what served you before, and maybe it's not what serves you anymore,
oh,
right?
that's a good
Because that's
point.
how it is for me. Is for me, I was very, very responsive because for the first couple of
Yeah,
years, like I was support. So it didn't matter to me whether someone went through support at zenmade.com or whether they
that's
contacted my
right.
email directly. Now I'm very protective of it because I'm no longer the support team. So I don't like people contact me when it's like, hey, like the support team is there to help you with this, this is not what I do anymore. Like I mean they know the software better than I do. And so
That's true.
that's just like a really important thing, that for me being that responsive no longer served what I built the business for. Initially it was exactly what we built the business for, and it
Right.
was what was necessary to win.
Would you actually do that? The onboarding campaigns comes from me, right? It's
Yeah.
still automated, but it comes from my email address. Would you actually change that? Like I know a few founders, what they do is they actually put like, their name on their title founder, but when you reply, it's either support at or team at, kind of thing.
Yeah. The whole thing is like, is it better for it to actually go to the CEO? Yeah. Does it make any difference whatsoever if it doesn't
It's
and it
actually
goes to
not better.
support?
It's
Absolutely
actually not
not.
better, because if you're asking me like a question like how do I do like import CSV or stuff like that, or like any, it's
Yeah.
actually most of the time I forward to support because, and then a few hours later. So it's actually not better always to come back through me when it comes to like technical
Yeah.
questions.
Well, I mean more like the perception, right? Like the
Sure,
perception of like, oh,
sure.
like, you know,
And
it's the CEO, but I hit reply and
isn't
it
that
went to the
stupid?
support team.
Like, would you expect the CEO of Salesforce to come and help you out with their
Yeah,
accounts?
exactly, right? Like when I look at that, like there's, I mean, there's always different ways that you can see like everything. You know, if you contact a software company and the founder gets back to you in 5 minutes, you're like, that's awesome. Like, that's really cool. That's such good service. Like, they care, blah, blah, blah. But also, they're probably sitting in a garage and you're probably the one person that's contacted them in the last 30 days and they're just like excited. When I
Right,
contact someone and the founder's like, yo, talk to my support team, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you're an entrepreneur. Like, you've built a business. You have a
right.
support team. Like, it's not your role anymore. But like, you know, some people are just like, oh, the founder cares so much. Like,
I do.
you know,
I
does
do.
he?
Amar,
Or
I
does he have
do.
nothing better to do?
I have a lot of things to do. Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, there's plenty of things. You're right here. I should definitely just address it. Come by and tell you,
Yeah.
like, I'm a
Well,
new man. No, I
what
only receive one email a day.
one one thing actually that that I've actually been considering doing is I'm trying to figure out if there's someone at ZenMade that I'd kind of like to take under my wing and I would like to grow like a lot, you know, kind of internally within
Oh,
the company.
COO.
And whoever that would be, I would love to hand off my email inbox like management to, of just like, hey, like I'm going to be in my inbox every day, but now it's part of your role
Yeah,
to start helping me deal with things in the inbox. This is going to give you an idea of like everything that I do and deal with as CEO. That would be a crash course in like, you know,
the
every
funny
shit
thing
show that
is
we create for
exactly
ourselves.
what you said. My friend CEO that I told you about, like at the before the call,
Yeah,
exactly what he did. It's like he's got one of his team
really.
member just
Yeah,
just doing it. He's in inbox and then doing everything, and then just let him know about only the urgent thing that he needs to specifically do it.
yeah,
Everything else they either
yeah,
go into the sales pipeline or the marketing pipeline or support kind of thing,
yeah.
which is pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
it's one of the best ways I think for like for training or for ramping someone up within the company in sort
Yep.
of like a non-traditional, like you can't really train them for that stuff. But we've had 2 or 3 of our VAs now have now moved up significantly in the company or doing completely different things than what we hired them for, because they were transcribing the various meetings and got insights into the company and
Yeah.
like how they could contribute in ways that like we never would have been able to explain to them. So yeah, just an idea.
Yeah, well, that's awesome stuff. I hope as listeners, and if you feel my frustration, then all the good advice of from our friends Amar will help you out. If you don't have this problem, then well, thanks for watching anyway. And that's
Yeah,
it.
thanks for sticking with us this far.
Sorry,
If
there's
you're
nothing
watching this
more. That's
on,
it. That's the end. You
yeah,
can
yeah,
leave.
that's
That's
it.
it.
Yeah, just hang up right now. So if
Thanks, Amar, for the call.
you're
Bye.
watching this on YouTube, because currently that's the only that's the only place that we actually publish the videos, I will drop a comment when Jeremy posts this on YouTube. I'll put a comment down below that has a link to Manisha right now.
Okay, great, cool. Thank you, Amar. Appreciate and keep it up, buddy.